1.8 million people to 41.5 million people. 9,000 registered ice hockey players to over 550,000 registered ice hockey players. 5 active NHLers to 485 active NHLers. 28 total NHLers ever to 5,500 total NHLers ever. And 4 preliminary round wins to 20 tournament wins. Any way you slice it, the country of Latvia and the country of Canada are miles, or should I say kilometers apart when it comes to comparing the two in the sport of hockey. But last Friday night in Ottawa, there was only one comparison that mattered, and for now, it's one that sets in stone the greatest upset in World Junior Championship history, 3-2. Now, for all the Canadians out there that are beyond frustrated, upset, in disbelief, however you want to phrase it, listen, I get it. You beat this same country in this same tournament 10-0 a year ago. But for just one moment, if you can, try to step back and appreciate how impressive this feat really is. Great moments come from great opportunity, and hard work will always beat talent when talent doesn't work hard. Two phrases that not only embody this Latvia win, but epitomize the game of hockey and why we love it so damn much. And with that, welcome into Top Shelf presented by Skyscanner. I'm your host, Levi Smith, joined as always by John Matisz, and special guest today, Josh Wegman. Let's start with Canada right off the top. We'll talk World Juniors a little bit here. I mean, we're all Canadian, so I think we have the best perspectives of how this game unfolded. What were the emotions you guys were feeling just watching that play out?
Well, it was a pretty frustrating game to watch, right, in terms of Canada just being terrible at executing any part of their game plan. It being really a feel-good story for Latvia. And I think that came to the forefront once they start playing the anthem.
Yeah.
Once they start celebrating. Because it's at the end of the day, it's a round-robin game, so I'm sure Canada will be fine ultimately. And also, it's cool to see this small nation, 1.8 million?
1.8 million, like 9,000 registered hockey players, the whole country.
I think they have like 22 indoor rinks, something. Yeah, like they have that around the corner in Toronto, like one neighborhood in Toronto. It's wild. So more or less, I was transitioning to Latvian pride, for lack of a way to put it, pretty quickly there, because it's just such a good story. Like, it's not like the Finns or something like that, where it's this team that maybe is a bit of an underdog and they beat Canada. It's like, no, this is an extreme underdog.
Yeah, exactly.
And yeah, obviously, like you said, it's a feel-good story for Latvia. If Canada squeaks out a win there, it doesn't really mean much here. It's almost like just a sign of relief. Yeah. But for Latvia, that win does so much for not just the country, but that hockey program. Staying in the top level of the World Juniors is really huge. You get more funding, right? But yeah, for Canada, there's definitely some embarrassment there. They just couldn't get to the middle of the ice, makes you question a lot of things, but there's still a lot of tournament left, and if they can go on and win this thing, everyone will forget about that loss, in Canada anyway.
It's true, and as that game, like with how many saves their goalie started making, as that game got on, I actually said aloud, kind of almost as a jinx on Latvia, so I'm sorry, Latvia, but I was like, if they do all this and still lose this game, like, talk about a crushing loss for them. I almost, like, obviously you don't want to see Canada lose that game, but I started feeling like they put in all of this work, this whole game to stay neck and neck with Canada, just to lose, it'd be crushing.
That's the thing. Once the game gets far enough along where it's, into overtime or something, and then into the shootout, which went really long, and Feldberg's the goalie for Latvia was incredible. Once it gets to that point, it's almost like, this is such a good story.
Yeah,
maybe if Latvia wins, it isn't the worst case scenario.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I want to stick with the World Junior talk, at least for the wraparound segment. And we'll stick with Canada with our first question here, because not only did they lose this game, but they have looked just sluggish and slow. I mean, they've got 9 goals in the tournament compared to 18 that the States have, who have played the same teams as Canada thus far. You look on the other side, the Czechs have 23, I believe. So I want to ask you, John, we'll start with you. What do you think, who's to blame for how they're looking? Do you think it's the players on the ice? Do you think it's the coaching? Or do you think it's the roster management? Were they doomed from the start with some of the guys that they left off this team? Or who do you blame here?
Well, first thing I'll say is that we're recording this before the Canada-US game. That's pretty important context for what we're about to talk about. But I think I go towards coaching first. I think all three are interconnected, the players, the coaching, the roster management. But the coaching, and specifically Dave Cameron, I think he's dropped the ball in a number of cases. I mean, the first thing that comes to mind on that front is Luca Pinelli, his captain in Ottawa. So Cameron coaches the 67s. Pinelli is the captain there. Maybe shouldn't have been on the team in general, and now he's playing with Gavin McKenna. and Berkeley Catton. So this is supposed to be an explosive line, and I feel like he's bringing it down. They need a proper trigger man up there with McKenna and Catton, and Pinelli isn't it.
Yeah.
So that's number one. And then number two is the power play. I mean, look, it's a short tournament. I think you should lean on chemistry. I think you shouldn't be really experimenting at all, maybe in the pre-tournament games. But once you get into the tournament, you should know what you're doing. And they had 3 London Knights who play on the same power play during junior season, not away from the World Juniors. And it took them a few games to get to those 3 guys playing on the same power play unit for Canada. And the thing that boggled my mind was that Oliver Bonk was the quarterback for Canada, but he wasn't even the quarterback for London.
Yeah.
So you're putting a guy in this situation that he's not used to, and his teammate, Sam Dickinson, usually runs the power play for London, and he's going, what's going on here? I should be the guy running it. So anyways, I think he overthought it, Dave Cameron. I think it was very obvious what they could have done there. And last of all, I think coaching deserves some blame for how undisciplined Canada's been. I think they've taken an average of 6 minors per game. I mean, that's unacceptable. I understand the standard at international competition is different than, say, in the CHL where most of these players are from. But like at some point, the coaches have to say, guys, let's clamp down and figure this out. And Dave Cameron hasn't done that yet.
I mean, that's how Latvia got in that game, right? Both of those goals were power play goals. So I agree with you. What do you think, Josh?
I think it's, like you said, it's a bit of a mix of all three. I lean towards more the management side. Because like you said, Dickinson should probably be quarterbacking that power play as of now, who they have there. But ultimately, it should have been Zane Parekh or Carter Yakimchuk, 2 way more offensively gifted defensemen that were left off the team. And another guy, Beckett Seneca up front, Michael Misa. There's just so much firepower that they left off this team. They really galaxy-brained it, management, I think. I mean, again, it's still super early, but a lot of those one-on-one finishing that Beckett Seneca has and Michael Misa, they could really use that right now to generate offense at 5-on-5.
McKenna, Catton, Seneca, I like that line. Or even Andrew Crystal. Like, there's a number of really, elite offensive players that they left off this team on defense, on forward. And everyone said it going in the tournament, this is going to be a problem, and now it's so far been a problem.
It's not often you can name 5 guys who not only were snubbed, but as we've seen so far, can easily be out there. So yeah, I think all 3 are right, but that was the one that I was keying in on. We saw it at first, we're whatever. We'll trust the process. We'll trust the guys they rolled with. But yeah, now through 3 games, I think it's clear that those guys probably should be out there. We'll get away from Canada finally. We'll talk about the teams that have looked good so far. So we'll go to you for that, Josh. I just want to know who do you think? We're about 3. Some teams have played 4 games now. Who do you think has the best bid to win it all? Would you go with the States? Would you go with Sweden, who's tied for the top of the other group with the Czechs, or would you take the field? Who do you think it is?
I would go with the United States. They were my pick to win the tournament before it started. I'm going to stick with them. I just think the top-end talent is really separator from the rest of the teams. I mean, that top line of Leonard, Hagens, and Perreault. Leonard and Perreault specifically, they dominated this tournament a year ago, and now they're a year older. Leonard plays a really powerful game, too. I think he's just a man amongst boys out there. They probably have the most talented goalie in the tournament, too. So I'm leaning U.S.
Yeah, no, with Leonard, I feel like every time I look up, he's on a breakaway. He hasn't been converting as much as he would have liked to, but men amongst boys is a really good way to put it, where he could easily be in the NHL right now, and he's the captain for this team that has a ton of skill, but he's sort of the heart and soul at the same time. I'll throw out Finland, though, as sort of like a dark horse, and the main reason why is that when they played the U.S., I thought that they were fantastic. Finland's A game, apparently, is pretty dominant.
Yeah.
I think that their B game is a little underwhelming. So I guess it depends on how the momentum goes for them throughout the tournament. But I think that they've got pretty good goaltending. I think that their defense is good. And then up front with Hellenius and a couple other players, they've got enough offensive punch to do some damage. So, I mean, is Finland going to win the tournament? Probably not, but I like them as a dark horse.
Yeah.
You can never sleep on the Finns in any international tournament. They're always just so scrappy.
I will say, too, it's a big day today, so unfortunately we don't have the knowledge of the games that are happening tonight, but you got the top 2 teams in both groups squaring off. I think it's quite open. I will say there's no, surefire favorite right now because Canada lost to Latvia, but they beat the Finns who beat the States. And so, that game tonight's big. And then to see how the Czechs and Swedes size up tonight will be very telling. So, yeah, I think it's more open than maybe we've seen, considering, like, that's 5 teams right there that could all seemingly have somewhat of a chance to win this thing. So I like that. Now, let's talk about the players. I want to talk about, the guys who have looked the best thus far. There's a handful of guys, especially on those checks. They've been putting up a lot of goals, a lot of points over there. But, John, who do you think at this point has made the best case for the tournament MVP so far? Is it James Hagens? Would you go with Sandin Pellikka, the defenseman for the Swedes? Would you take somebody else? Who are you thinking?
Sandin Pellikka, he's my guy for this question. The Detroit Red Wings first rounder. He won defenseman of the tournament last year, and I think that he's just come in guns a-blazing this year, picked off where he left off, and he gets a hat trick early on. He's up to 7 points, and he's pretty good defensively. Like, especially off the rush, he's got such good skating and such a good stick that he's really become the number one guy, above and beyond on that Swedish blue line, which is so important to their success. And they just pump them out, these types of prospects like crazy. So Sandin Pellikka is my guy, and I just think that he has the sort of all-around ability to also maybe score a game-winning goal in the medal round or do something dramatic.
Yeah.
Yeah, Sandin Pellikka has been great, and if Sweden wins it, I think, like you said, he's the favorite, being the captain as well. But I'm going to lean Hagens. Again, I did pick USA to win the tournament. Got to lean that way. It could easily end up being Perreault or Leonard as well. But I think what Hagens has done, too, is he's really cemented himself as the best prospect in the upcoming draft. Porter Martone and Matthew Schaefer were there for Canada, the projected top 3 picks. So this tournament was big for cementing that status. Schaefer got hurt. Martone hasn't been great. He was a scratch last game for Canada. So, I'm leaning Hagens. He's been fantastic centering that top line for U.S.
Yeah. I think those 2 guys to me have stood out the most. I will say, though, like, a lot of tournament to go. I think if Canada turns it around, you could see Gavin McKenna or somebody still have time to make a bid for the MVP, or if those checks keep going with the way that they're
their goalie
scoring,
Michael Hrabal, I think
they're getting it on both ends. They got a bunch of guys in the top of the scorers right now, and their goalie's playing unreal. So who knows? I mean, I don't think people are doubting them just yet, but it still seems like a bit of a long shot for them to really go on a run. But if they keep this up, I think they got a bunch of guys that have real bids for it. And, of course, if you want to catch all the action going down in Ottawa, Skyscanner has you covered with deals on everything from flights to hotels to car rentals, everything in between. Check out the link in our bio for more info. But with that being said, guys, we're going to stop the World Junior talk for now. We're going to get into the NHL talk because NHL season hasn't paused for this, obviously.
Yep.
And so we're going to start with the top 5. It's a segment that we do a lot here. Normally I'm running it, but today I thought with the different crew that we have, why don't we all just kind of chip in on it? So we'll keep it very simple. Obviously, recording this on December 31st. I think we should just go through and kind of handpick, group select who we think the top 5 teams in the NHL now. It's a joint power rank, I'll call it.
Yeah, sure.
So we'll start with you, Josh, and we'll go through Snake Draft and head back over there. But your number 1 team, starting at the top, who is the best team entering 2025?
It's really tough, but I got the Vegas Golden Knights. I think if we're talking Stanley Cup contenders, they're built for the playoffs better than anyone else, in my opinion. And I think it all starts with the blue line. They have tons of size, tons of mobility, 1 through 6. Guys can move up, guys can move down. It really starts there. They have a goalie in Aiden Hill who we've seen can get hot and go on a run. They're deep down the middle with Jack Eichel, Thomas Hertl, William Karlsson, and never put it past their management group to make a big ad at the deadline. Yeah. They seem to do it every year. So Vegas for me is number 1.
Yeah, I'm perfectly content with that. John, at 2, what do you think?
No, that's fair. I'm going to go Florida. I think they're going to run it back and go on a serious run here. I think that we haven't really seen them have many nights where they've really turned it on, yet they're still near the top of the standings. Yeah. Like, I think they're really saving themselves. And they just offer everything. I mean, forecheck, cycle, rush game, good defending. They lost a couple of big names in the offseason, but they've more or less been fine on that front. Good goaltending. I don't see any holes. Well coached. So Florida, the third. This will be their 3rd trip to the Cup final. Very difficult to do. Tampa did it recently, obviously, but I think that they have a real chance of doing that. I think they're right up there in terms of the top teams in the league, like on paper, and then also they've performed pretty well in the standings, despite, like I said, not necessarily feeling up to the task every night and kind of pacing themselves.
Yeah. It's tough to argue against the defending champs, so I think they're fine at 2. I'll take number 3. At number 3, I have the Jets. I think we were waiting for them to cool off a bit, and it hasn't happened yet.
True.
Still first in the league in points. But just, I mean, you look at just the very simple stats that track NHL teams, like goals per game, they're second. Goals against, they're first. Just being at the top of those two categories alone, I think, says enough. But the way that this team is constructed is really what's impressing me, because it looks similar to years past, but I mean, the guys are stepping up now. They've got 5 different guys with more than 30 points. I think Vegas is great. Obviously, I think that they're warrant of that number 1 spot. They have one guy that has more than 30 points. So just looking at how this Jets team is functioning, they got the best power play in the league as well. Probably the best goalie, I think it's safe to say right now. I think them at 3. I'm fine with not having them at the top because they haven't proven us anything yet. So we've seen this story kind of before. But I think the Jets at 3 is pretty safe for me. Go back to you for number 4, John.
Number 4. Wait, are you number 4?
Yeah.
Go back to you for number 4.
We got to go all the way around here.
No worries. Like you said, with Winnipeg being a team that's built from the net out and has a lot of depth, spreads things around, my number 4 team is the complete opposite, and that's the Edmonton Oilers. They do it with all that high-end firepower, superstar power, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. Yeah, there's some questions in net with Stuart Skinner. The blue line has some holes. They really need to get another top 4 defenseman to play with Darnell Nurse, settle down that second pair. But I think it's hard to bet against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl going on another run and just carrying that team to the promised land because they're capable of it.
Yeah, Draisaitl's been incredible this year. And another thing I'll add is that I just think that, if they fix something on defense and then they add another forward, like they need a little more speed or something, I think they're just a couple of like deadline-esque moves away from being way more complete. And they'll figure it out with Stuart Skinner. Like, they got to the Cup final last year. I think that's a totally fair pick. And honestly, even if they were out of the playoffs right now, I think they'd be in my top 5. Just with the ceiling is so high when you have McDavid and Draisaitl that if they make the playoffs, they can go on a run. They're that one team that you wouldn't be surprised if they were the 8th seed and they end up in the Cup.
Well,
final.
I mean, they had the slow start, and I don't think anyone was writing them off.
No,
They've done this before, so I think that's a safe pick at 4.
They've got the extra draft picks in their cupboard too from the offer sheet, so a bit more ammunition at the deadline to make a move.
That's the thing, right? So they lose Broberg, Holloway, and it's hurt them a little bit. But you're right, they do have the ammunition now. So let's see if they use it.
5. Who do you have rounding out?
I'll go
this
with
list?
the Devils.
Okay.
The thing with them is that I feel like they really addressed their needs from last year.
Yeah.
New coach Sheldon Keefe. Their defensive metrics are outstanding under him. And then the guy in net, Jacob Markstrom, has lived up to the billing that he had coming in. So they fixed their issues. They still have Bratt. They still have Hughes driving a very potent offense. Guys like Stefan Noesen really producing. Timo Meier looks like he's back to his old self. Their blue line is quite deep. A lot of young kids, but then also the Brendan Dillons of the world who can kind of stabilize. So even though they've had sort of an up and down roller coaster ride during the Jack Hughes era, I think that they're finally on that track towards going on deep playoff runs. And I just don't really see a ton of weakness on paper here. And they have a very good record. They posted 2 12-save shutouts recently, which is like going back to Brodeur days, right?
Crazy.
With the Devils and how they used to lock things down. So that's a good indication of how good they've gotten defensively.
Yeah. Jacques Lemaire would be proud.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, seriously. No, I'm with you on that. I think it took me a while to warm up to the idea of the Devils, considering what we've seen in the past from them as of late. But I really like how this team's constructed, and it's all kind of just falling perfectly in order for them. So, I agree. But let's stick with that theme of kind of looking into the next year. We're going to get into emptying the notebook, obviously with you, John. We're at the end of another calendar year of hockey. We're getting into 2025. So I want to hear from you. I know you've got your bold predictions. What are your 5, I would say, boldest predictions entering 2025, the second half of the season?
Yeah.
Where's your head at with this?
Yeah, so this is for the calendar year 2025, right? So it's going to touch on the bigger events. The first one that I'll serve up is I think Sweden is going to win the Four Nations tournament, and that's it's a little hot. And I'm going to throw in there that they win over Finland just for fun. But I think that Sweden, things can go either really south or really, I guess, north. I don't know if that's the equivalent way to put that, but go really well for them if their blue line lives up to its potential. I think it's all if they unlock the potential of that blue line, it's sort of sky's the limit in terms of the Four Nations face-off. Hedman, Forsling, Dahlin, Carlson, they've got really sturdy guys there. And then speaking of the Devils, they have Markstrom and net, or Gustafsson from Minnesota. They're really good on the back end and in net. So, Canada's got the firepower and the star power. The U.S. is the best team top to bottom, but there's something there with Sweden where I think that they might rise to the occasion. And some of their forwards, the Petterssons and Zibanejads and Forsbergs of the world, maybe they wake up from their slumber of this season and with the Swedish uniform on, live up to their potential.
It's a good time to turn it around.
That's what I'm thinking for the Four Nations. Okay, for second, I think I'm going to go with Ovechkin and the goal race. And I'm going to be a bit of a Debbie Downer here. I don't think he does it this year. I know that he's on this incredible pace. I know that if he plays all 82 games, or had, because he can't do that now, he's on a 70-goal pace. He's absolutely shooting the lights out with 17 goals in 20 games. He's at 870 right now. So I think that he's going to score roughly 18 more goals and end up with 888, which means going in next October, the countdown will be on, and he will break Gretzky's record. And honestly, this is kind of like a bold prediction that I just kind of hope comes true in terms of us having the summer to build up even more momentum of the interest and just have the whole world kind of be watching in October versus if it comes down to the wire this season. I feel like it'll be a little disappointing if he just misses by a game or a goal or it becomes really close. So I think if he goes into next season with 5 to 7 goals to catch Gretzky, I think that's really fun. And I think it's honestly realistic. I don't think he's going to keep up the pace that he's at right now. So that's what I'm thinking for that second bold prediction. Third, I'm gonna wade into interesting territory and predict that Austin Matthews lands on long-term injured reserve. Okay. And so he's had this mysterious injury all season. He left for a period, came back. I think he played 4 games. He left again. Things are just very mysterious around it. And, we've seen many teams do it over the past few years of using that LTIR slot to put a player, and then he he magically appears in the playoffs.
Mark Stone-esque.
And so, this is really going out on a limb and predicting something that could easily not happen. But I just, the spidey senses are tingling that, maybe this happens. And honestly, it would be a complete gong show in terms of the discourse around this, considering it's the Leafs, considering it's Matthews. And, people get up in arms even when it's Tampa and Kucherov or Vegas and Stone. If you add the Leafs into the mix and a top 5 player like Matthews, things will get really testy online on Twitter and whatnot. But, yeah, I don't know. There's something about this situation that screams, something might be going on there. Maybe he ends up having surgery, even though he's put it off to start the season. So, yeah, well, that's a spicy one. But the next one is the Cup. So I think a Canadian team's going to win for the first time since '93.
Okay.
And there's 5 teams in the playoff picture right now, so it doesn't seem like that's a bold prediction. But when you consider how, so many of these teams over the years have made the Cup final and ultimately lost, it's almost like Canada's cursed at this point. So I think Edmonton's sort of the front runner there. I think the Leafs have a chance under Craig Berube. I think that the Jets have a chance. The Canucks, if they ever figure it out, it's been a really weird season for them in terms of star players not performing, guys going on leaves of absence and being injured and whatnot. That's been a bit weird. The Sens, obviously, they're just happy to make the playoffs. But I think there's enough sort of randomness or at least potential that, and I think it'll be the Oilers. I think the Oilers could pull this off. So I think my bold prediction there is that the Canadian team wins for the first time since '93. And then from there, we'll cap it off with the entry draft. Matthew Schaefer, he looked fantastic in his debut, or at least his first 2 games in the World Juniors. I just think that since he's going up against the other guys in the discussion or forwards, I think that Schaefer might actually be the guy who's picked first overall. There's 4 or 5 players involved in this discussion, and I threw in there that Nashville picks him just to make it a little more bold of a take. They haven't figured it out. We thought that they would have by now in this season after all the moves they made in the offseason, but they continue to head down towards the bottom of the standings, so they're going to get good lottery odds. So I say Nashville gets first overall, they take Matthew Schaefer, and the team that loves to develop blue liners has their next stud. So that's it. Those are my bold predictions.
I like it. You got a good mix of everything. You got teams winning cup. You got guys landing on the IR and stuff. You got everything in between.
It's possible none of these come true.
Josh, anything from you? You got anything cooking in your terms?
Yeah, I got one. It's maybe not as bold as what John had. It's more specific, but I'm gonna go out and say the Vegas Golden Knights trade for Chris Kreider at the 2025 deadline. Just seems like such a Vegas move. They're always making big splashes. Kreider's definitely available. He's one of those guys. He's a playoff performer.
Yeah.
Scores greasy goals around the front of the net. I think Vegas needs some help on the wings, and he could be just the perfect addition.
Yeah, I mean, it's a Vegas move for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, the Rangers are going to have trouble offloading Kreider, and Vegas, it's kind of that one team that's like, oh, you have an expensive star caliber player. Sure, we'll figure out
Mark Stone
the cap gymnastics. Maybe we'll see you later. Mark Stone, and we'll see in the playoffs that kind of stuff. And you hit the nail on the head.
They always find a way.
Yeah, they always find the way. And with the wings, I mean, they got Dorofeev and Olofsson, who are sort of, and then Holtz, these sort of like sharpshooter types. But they need a more complete player like Kreider that can slot in there because they've got Eichel and Carlson and Hurdle down the middle. Mm-hmm. They need a little more beef on the wings, I think.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I've got two quick ones.
Okay.
First one kind of contradicts one of yours, to be honest, because I've been on this take for a while. But I think Ovi, despite the injury, I think he still gets it done this year. I've been saying for a while, he's found this extra gear that I don't think anyone's ever found before when you're chasing. Because no one else has chased the goal record like this, but I think he wants to get it done this year. I don't think he wants to play 82 more games to score 4 or 5 goals. So I think he needs 25 still. He's been out, but I think he gets it done. And their last game of the year is against the Penguins.
Okay.
Last regular season
That's
game.
pretty awesome.
So, I mean, if things set up for him to break it in that game against Sid, who he spent his entire career against, I think that would be pretty special. And my other one, this one actually goes better with one of your takes as well. I think that the team who lands the first pick in the draft this time next year will be, I won't say in the playoffs, but close.
Okay.
I think I like a lot of the teams at the bottom of the standings, which is a crazy thing to be saying. I like how they're built. And if a team like Nashville really does end up last, I mean, they've struggled completely this year, but they've got pieces like the vision's there. But even if a team like an Anaheim or a Buffalo maybe or San Jose, they've got a lot of good young guys where you add a Hagens, you add a Schaefer. I think it really takes them to a level that it kind of just almost speeds up the process of that rebuild. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. But yeah, John, I'm interested to see how those predictions play out. And you're kind of setting it up for a bit of a Cinderella story here with the Leafs, with Matisz coming back in the playoffs. You think a Canadian team's going to win the Cup? I don't know. Are you hinting at something here with us?
I'm hinting for ultimate chaos is what I'm
That's what it's sounding like. But speaking of the Leafs, we're in Toronto. Leafs fans range all across the country. And if you're someone who likes to travel to games and want to come down to see the Buds in action, Skyscanner has your back with one simple search. Link in bio in the description for more on that. So let's get into why we love hockey. Our other segment that we love to have on the show. Why we love hockey. Lots of reasons right now. I mean, we've got the World Juniors going on. We've got the NHL ramping up almost halfway through now. But one thing in particular, I think, is why we love hockey. And I think this is one of the best things that hockey has to offer, the Winter Classic. It's beautiful. Every single time it always delivers. And they're playing at Wrigley Field this year in Chicago. I don't think that there's any tradition really like this in pro sports, at least. You got the Olympics and stuff like that. But the way that they structure this and just have it set, you don't really see it elsewhere. Like I'll tip my cap to, I think, college basketball a couple years ago. They played a game on a giant like naval ship.
Oh, really?
Which was crazy. A bit of a change of scenery there. Or you kind of look at baseball. They've mixed it up. They've had the Field of Dreams games.
Right.
But aside from like those two very specific instances, you don't see anybody else play a game outside the way that hockey goes from inside to outside.
Yeah, it's a huge nostalgia play, and it gets me every time. And I know that some people are a little, I guess, over outdoor games, but I implore them to check one out if they're able to, if they're in an NHL city or if one comes their way, because it's really about the 50,000 people that are there, because it's incredible that you're out in the elements, and whether it's snowing or even it's raining or it's just cold, like it's a really cool experience, and I think the players really dive into that aspect of it too. And You know, at one point they had like 6 or 7 per year. They've toned it down. I think that was the right call. I think they maybe overextended themselves that way. But to have the Winter Classic plus 1 or 2 more, I think that's the right amount. It's just something so uniquely hockey.
Mm-hmm.
And it brings you back to being on the pond. And hopefully one day they'll be able to do some crazier stuff, like go to Lake Louise or do some more sort of tropical type places. They tried Lake Tahoe. It didn't go so well, but we blame that on the weather. But no, it's fantastic, and honestly, every year it's a must watch, no matter what you're doing, just to see, what type of sort of action happens on the ice, because it might be a little affected by the weather.
Oh yeah,
I think it must be really cool for the players. Not only do you get that primetime spotlight where there's way more eyes on this game, but just like you said, everyone who grew up in Canada or the northern United States or overseas, chances are one of the first times you put skates on, it was outdoors. So it's just that sense of nostalgia and growing up playing pond hockey or whatever. It's really cool that they're able to make it happen. And I think, like you said, they have the right amount now.
Yeah, they go to some pretty crazy venues, whether it's Wrigley Field or, some massive stadium like the Leafs and the Red Wings back in the day did the Big House. Like, you're able to just tap into like some unique opportunities. And I think because they've done so many now, they've done like 50 or something. It's a well-oiled machine out there in terms of when they show up a couple days before, get the ice ready. Honestly, I think that Lake Tahoe one was the only time where it was like, this is barely NHL hockey because the conditions are so bad. But for that to be the only time, it's pretty impressive.
No, I agree. And I agree. I'm glad they've toned it down a bit because, back when it first started, 1 a year. And it was almost as if, like, I know that they don't just play one every year on Christmas, but like the way the NBA, NFL kind of do, like if your team's in that game, it's a big deal.
Yes.
And so, when the Leafs finally got that matchup with the Red Wings, I was fired up for it. So I wouldn't even be opposed if they go back to doing the 1 a year. So
okay.
Maybe not with the Blackhawks and Blues, but I think that would be a fun twist where it's like you really get rewarded for playing well. You get the Winter Classic. With that being said, it's time for our favorite part of the show.
All right.
We're getting in.
I know what this is.
To top shelf trivia. John knows what this is. Because
the lights.
He's been on fire as of late. Credit to you. We've got Josh playing for the first time. I'm excited to see how this goes. We were talking about kind of looking into the next year in terms of 2025, the teams that are going to be good, all your bold takes. But we got to talk about the year that we just had as well. And so that's what the theme of this trivia is going to be for you guys. It's the 2024 calendar year in review. An emphasis on calendar because this is a unique set of stats that I have in front of me here. I've got the top 5 guys with the most points in 2024, all games. So including the playoffs, including the regular season, both seasons. Just the top 5 that you need to get from there. We have goaltending wins, exact same sample size there, all those games. And we have team wins. So 15 total points up for grabs. I'm going to give you guys 1 strike each. So you can have 1 miss. And if you go for a second one, you're done. The other guy can keep going.
Okay.
That's how we're going to play. I think we start with you, Josh. Special guest treatment that you get here. So anywhere on the board, you get your first pick here. Where do you go?
I'm going to go way off the board here.
Okay.
Just kidding. Connor McDavid for most points.
Connor McDavid is correct. 178 points. He's got 22 more than anyone else. Guess that's what happens when you put up 44 in the playoffs.
I'll just go with his running mate. Leon Draisaitl's got to be on there too.
Leon Draisaitl is also on there. He's third. There's actually someone in between the two guys. Both those guys on the list. You guys each get a point. Next guest, Josh.
So do I have to stay with most points, or
you
can
I
go?
You can go anywhere. You can go anywhere.
Okay. Most wins team. I'll go with the Florida Panthers.
Florida Panthers are correct. They are first in that category with 68 wins, 1 more than second place there. Interested to see who you guys think that is.
I'm going to go back to most points, and Nikita Kucherov has to be in there somewhere.
Nikita Kucherov is in there. He's 4th on the list with 144. Nicely done. Sticking with the players. Josh spread it out there a little bit, but 2-2. Back to you, Josh.
All right, I'll go back to most points. Nathan MacKinnon.
Nathan MacKinnon, number 2 on the list. Good credit to him for being there above Draisaitl, considering the run that the Oilers went on. I think that's the most impressive thing. He's got he's got the most regular season points over this span too, which is interesting to note. But yeah, he's 4th on the list, so you're just missing 5th in terms of the most points. Haven't touched the goalies yet.
I'm going to go with goalies now.
Okay.
Connor Hellebuck's got to be on there.
Connor Hellebuck is on there, 4th.
Ooh, okay.
Slips down to 4th, which is very interesting. But I mean, he only had one in the playoffs last year, so it kind of makes sense. Nicely done. 3-3. Back to you, Josh.
I'll go back to most wins per team, and I'll go Edmonton.
Edmonton is correct. Second on the list, one less win than the Panthers. I found that to be super cool, considering obviously they won 7 games in the Stanley Cup Finals. That one extra win the Panthers got happened to be the one that won them the cup. So yes, Edmonton, second on the list. Back to you, John.
Most wins goalie. Let me see here. Who wins a bunch of games? No, I'm not going to go. Okay, I was thinking UC Saros, but there's no way he's on there. Let's see. Most wins. Sergei Bobrovsky. He's got to be on there, right?
Sergei Bobrovsky is on there. He's tied for first with 51 wins. Picked up a whole bunch in the playoffs, obviously. That got his numbers up there. Nicely done. That's correct. I believe, was it 4-4 now? 4-4 tie. Back to you, Josh. No misses yet.
I was going to go Bobrovsky, John stole mine. But I will go. I know things have not gone as well for his team this year, but for most goalie wins, I'm going to go Igor Shesterkin.
Igor Shesterkin is a good get.
Yeah, that is good.
On the goalie list.
That is good.
He had 10 in the playoffs, so I think that kind of helped him out with how little wins he has this year. But yeah, of course he's on there. I mean, he's one of the best in the league. 5-4, Josh.
Let's see. Okay, so goalies.
You still have the guy tied with Bobrovsky at 1 for goalies.
Yeah, and it's not Hellebuck, obviously. I really don't think it's an Oilers goalie. Jeez. Okay, most wins. Let's see. Who's a team that's gone deep in the playoffs? Carolina's obviously on there.
Carolina
What am I
is
doing
obviously
here?
on there.
Wasting
Yeah.
everyone's time.
Yeah. Fourth on the list is the Hurricanes. Yeah, they've been really solid in the year 2024. I'll say that much. 5-5. This is heated. No misses yet.
No misses.
Like to see it. Back to you, Josh.
I'm going to go back to team wins with the New York Rangers.
The New York Rangers are off the list.
Yes, let's
First
go.
wrong guess there.
I should have known. They've been so bad this year. I just thought the President's Trophy last year.
It was a good guess.
It was a good guess.
guess.
I mean, Shesterkin's on the list for goalies, so
Yeah.
you'd think maybe, but I think they just slipped off this list. All right, so Josh is out of wrong guesses, so pressure's on him. But we go back to you, John, to take the lead.
Tampa Bay most wins.
Tampa Bay not there either. Both took some losses there, going for the most win teams. All right, everyone was down to no more missed territory.
Yeah, it gets
Tied 5-5.
We're
We're going back
tough
to you.
here. I don't know. I'm going to go Stuart Skinner. I think that playoff run might have helped.
I was gonna say
That's
that.
what.
After his hint, I'm
that's
like,
what
oh,
the hint was. Stuart Skinner. He's third on the list still. He only has 2 less than the guys tied for first with 49. Yeah, you win that many games in the playoffs, you're probably gonna be there.
Who's the other goalie?
All right, pressure's on. So Josh had 6. John gets
How
this
have we
wrong.
not got number 1? Goalie is.
I'm gonna go with most points,
Okay.
and I'm going to go. I feel like this is wrong, but Jack Hughes.
Jack Hughes is incorrect.
So do I lose?
So you lose. Nicely done. I mean, you still have your guesses left. So if you wanna try and
Fill it out.
I'll give
fill
it
it
a
out, we'll see.
shot.
But I mean, first appearance and a big win for Josh. It's really impressive.
I'll go. Jesus, tough.
You gotta be quick, though.
Wins Vegas.
Wins Vegas, not on the list.
Oh,
Not on the list.
All right, we
I
both
would have
lose.
been out
Well,
anyway.
I lost first.
Yeah, I'll read them out too. So Jake Ottinger actually first in wins.
Wow.
Really?
Stars did go,
Stars. I should have.
they did a good run and they've been good this whole
I
time.
wouldn't have guessed that though.
Yeah.
That's-
And then the 2 teams that you guys were missing there, the Stars, obviously, and the
Sleeping on
Jets.
the
Wasn't
Stars.
thinking of
The
Dallas.
Jets.
at all.
The
Jets
Jets.
are 5th on this
Jets,
list.
wow.
So talk about having a really solid season to get them there.
Who's filling out the points there?
Yeah, I missed that one. Last one was Rantanen.
Rantanen.
So
That's a
a
good
bit of a
one,
tricky one. He had a decent playoffs, even though Avs didn't go super deep. But yeah, good year for everyone on this list, especially in 2024. But that concludes the show. Happy to have you guys in. Happy to talk hockey. We're talking World Juniors and we're talking NHL. As always, don't forget to like and subscribe. This has been Top Shelf presented by Skyscanner. Happy New Year's.